What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world, coming to you from virtual Vegas studio. Or you can find us on Facebook at the Vegas studio. So the latest victim of a hot mic is Mr. Thom Brennaman. Who is Thom Brennaman, you ask? I don't know either. Just joking, you goons. Of course I know who Thom Brennaman is. Thom Brennaman is a veteran announcer for the Cincinnati Reds. Who are the Cincinnati Reds, you ask? You dumb homo should already know the answer to this question. The Cincinnati Reds are a baseball team that dominated the National League from 1970 to 1979. They were known as the Big Red Machine. Their most famous player was Pete Rose, aka Charlie Hustle, one of the greatest baseball players of all time. The fact that he isn't in the Baseball Hall of Fame is something I think about daily. But this ain't about Pete Rose, old gambling ass. This is about Thom Brennaman. So the other night I'm watching the game. It's the first half of a doubleheader. It was the top half of the 7th inning. Did somebody say top? Let me not get distracted. The Reds were down 4-0. And then I heard this.
One of the fag capitals of the world. Reds Live, the pregame show presented by Ray St. Clair.
And then he just tried to go into a live read for Ray St. Clair's roofing. Which after you mention one of the capitals of the world, I being a want you to talk about what the capitals of the world are, which we all know the capital of the world, according to nomadicboys.com, is, I know nothing about any of this shit. Nothing about it. Number 1, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Number 2, Berlin, Germany. Number 3, Amsterdam. I know you were all expecting me to say San Francisco, but San Francisco didn't make the top 3. San Francisco was number 4. Sorry, San Francisco, didn't make the cut. Not gay enough. Not one of the capitals of the world. And this is what bothers me about this whole situation. 1, Thom Brennaman tried to act like he doesn't know the history of that word. He acted like he just figured it out 24 hours after this situation happened, which he ended up getting fired before those games were even over, or at least they put him on a suspension. So they pulled his ass off and then brought somebody else in. And then everybody has to act now like he hasn't used that word regularly, and he has to act like he didn't know that that was a bad word or how terrible it was, which I maintain that it's really not that terrible, especially nowadays. And I got a phone full of calling each other in my text messages. So I don't know when that word became so offensive and we just can't deal with it. And really, why should anybody care? How many of these are really watching baseball anyway? I know I was lying to you when I said I watched the game. I didn't watch that goddamn game. I didn't even know who the Cincinnati Reds were until my friend Chris told me. I had no idea who the Cincinnati Reds are. Don't give a about the Cincinnati Reds. The only reason I know about Pete Rose, never knew his name was Charlie Hustle, or his AKA was Charlie Hustle, but the only reason I knew about Pete Rose is because when I was young, in my formative years, I remember he was wearing those tight little pants and had that high ass, and Pete Rose was something to actually jerk off to when you were a kid. My age. This might be a little too much about my history now, but what I'm saying is, I just don't understand the big deal of it all. I mean, like, if you just kept this man in his job and didn't make him apologize and look like a fool, which is what he looked like, acting like he didn't know that that was a bad word, and then everybody around him, if you notice, there was silence around him after he said the word. Nobody was like, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. Everybody was like, business as usual. Tom being Tom again, talking about the capital of the world. He probably cup checks half these motherfuckers when he runs in. He probably runs through and past their dicks like it's the end of the game and he's slapping hands. That's what he probably does. But instead, everybody has to act like we're all shocked and we can't believe that somebody that's involved with Major League Sports would actually use the word which we all know the word and calling is as American as apple pie, as American as baseball itself. So why should anybody care? I just don't get why. But then GLAAD got involved, which GLAAD, if you don't know, that organization, They're just looking for shit to do at this point because people have gotten a little too comfortable with gay now, and it's going to make it so GLAAD's going to be out of a job if they don't keep picking at little small things that nobody really cares about. And that's what bothers me about the gay community, is that people act like they care about stuff that we really don't care about. Not only do we not care about the word we also don't care about baseball. We don't care about Pete Rose. We don't care about Charlie Hustle. We don't care about the Baseball Hall of Fame. We don't care about the top 3 cities in the world. You know, I gotta be honest. I'm so tired of talking about the word and acting like everything's supposed to be so goddamn offensive. Like, you know, I got over this shit after fucking high school. The only person that probably cares about this is Pete Rose, and that's just because he bet money on what the top 3 cities in the world are, and he also bet money on how long it was going to take before they pulled that motherfucker off the air. Anyway, this has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.